Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Coleman. I'm the chair of the DFI Legends Committee, and it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the first DFI Legends Awards ceremony. We are very lucky as an industry to have so many generous members who contribute not only money, but also their time and experience to advance our industry. The DFI Da Vinci Legends Award will be presented every 3 years to individuals, one from each category in engineering, manufacturing, and construction. This award is presented to 3 individuals who have made outstanding contributions to the Deep Foundation's profession through career dedication, innovation, and performance, which advance the engineering, manufacturing, and construction profession. I would like to thank the Legends Committee members who outperformed to make this event coincide with the 40th anniversary of the DFI. And could you please stand, the members? Mary Ellen, Mike, thank you very much. The next awards will be in 2018. The location hasn't been determined. Our website, there's going to be a nomination form available, as well as a history of how the individuals are selected in the criteria. And I encourage all people to make nominations. As many of you know, we've been working on this program for 3 years, and we're really happy to see it come about. And I think we've got a really interesting program this evening for you. With that, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, and this gentleman is known. He's a walking legend himself. I'd like to introduce Scott Litke.
Thank you, David. First of all, I'd like to thank David Coleman, the members of the organizing committee, and the DFI for inviting me to be the inaugural moderator for the first of what's going to be many, many very special events. It is both a pleasure and absolute privilege to be here and be able to do that. Before we get into the program, I just want to say that in keeping with the theme of DFI, which is finding common ground, there's nothing more typified of that particular kind of mindset than the individuals who are going to be honored here today, because they share something very much in common. They're innovative, they're committed to their work and their ideals, they're tenacious, and they're deeply involved in helping others. And through the presentations that you're going to see this afternoon and our conversation, this will become very, very clear. The way this is going to work is each of these individuals or their representatives will be presented with the Legends Medal. Following the presentation of the Legends Medal, each individual or the representative will present a PowerPoint slideshow depicting the career, the attitude, the achievements of those people being so honored. Following the PowerPoint presentation, we're going to have some fun with a roundtable conversation that will take place in an informal setting. I will do my best David Letterman impression. I have 10 stupid jokes. No, I don't. And it's intended to be interactive. Following the presentation of questions, which I'm going to present to individuals and to the panel, we're going to have an interactive question and answer session, including all the members from the audience. When we get into that part of the program, all that we would ask is when you have a question, notice I didn't say if, when you have a question, we would ask that you come to the microphone to present that question. Now, something really exciting is going to happen here, we hope. One of the recipients, George Tamaro, cannot be here in person. However, he is going to be with us live. And George will be part of this presentation, part of this ceremony, via the magic of Skype. He will appear on both screens, which he may already be. I can't see them yet. And he will be part of the interaction. So you'll be able to present questions or direct questions to him as well as to the other folks who are up here. So that's how it's going to work. We want to have fun. We want to enjoy ourselves here, and we really do ask that you become involved, because this is an opportunity for you to meet with these legendary folks. Okay, if we're ready to go. The first legend in the category of contractor is George Tamaro.
No, engineer.
Engineer is George Tamaro. Accepting for George is Rick Ellman, Mueser Rutledge Consulting Engineers. Thank you, Rick. In the category of contractor is Charles Berkel. Accepting for Charles is Alan Roach, Berkel and Company Contractors. In the category of manufacturers, the first recipient of the DFI Legends Award is Mr. Davide Trevisani. Trevi SPA and Soilmec, Cesena, Italy.
The end.
Assisting us is Mr. Stefano Trevisani, who will act as interpreter for Davide.
Just so you're ready, I'm going to get out of your way.
And now for the first presentation, I would ask Rick Ellman to please come to the podium and present George Tamaro.
Okay, so engineer or legend, George Tamaro, Mueser Rutledge Consulting Engineers. Legend, a widely accepted but unverified story, according to Webster's dictionary. Is it really desirable to be a legend? In the beginning, George's parents met in a night school while studying English as a second language. He's a product of their English language studies. His first language was Italian, his second was German, and his third was English. Son of Italian immigrants, he would be considered an anchor baby in contemporary society. Thank God for the 14th Amendment. He showed an early tendency to being overweight. The formative years. Defying child labor laws, George started work at the age of 19 delivering prescription drugs for the local pharmacy. It could be said that he was a drug runner. George played center for the high school football team during the period when leather helmets were in vogue, and this could explain some of his odd behavior. He spent his high school years either delivering produce, running the cheese counter at the local A&P, or pumping gas. Academics. George obtained his bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Manhattan College in 1959. Go Jaspers. Academics and tuition did not come easy in freshman year and sophomore year. George spent the next year improving his grade point average in finances, pumping gas, and running a survey party. George earned a master's of science degree from Lehigh University in 1961, and a master's degree in architectural technology from Columbia University in 1969. His proudest moment when he was awarded an honorary Doctor of Engineering from Manhattan College in 2011. He came full circle from Manhattan College to Manhattan College. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey career highlights. George worked 11 years at the Port Authority on the George Washington Bridge second deck, the GW bus station, the Newark Airport expansion, the World Trade Center, and the bus station expansion. He started work on a high note at the top of the George Washington Bridge Towers and descended to the bottom of the World Trade Center excavation. While at the Port Authority, George was awarded the Ports Authority Howard S. Coleman Service Fellowship for the study of reinforced concrete design at the Rome offices of Pier Luigi Nervi, the noted Italian architect and engineer. While in Rome, he was asked to visit and comment on a new technology called slurry walls. Thus, he became an instant expert on the technology and parlayed that knowledge into a career. Upon his return to New York, he was assigned to the Newark Airport expansion project, where he conceived and designed the hyperbolic paraboloid thin shell umbrella roofs. ICO's career highlights. George joined ICOS in 1971 as vice president and chief engineer. At ICOS, he designed and oversaw construction of numerous earth retention structures and cutoff systems worldwide. Building on his World Trade Center experience, he lectured at universities, professional associations, and construction organizations worldwide on the design and construction of slurry walls. He was awarded 4 U.S. patents for soldier beam and concrete lagging slurry wall construction. Mueser Rutledge Consulting Engineers. George joined Mueser Rutledge Consulting Engineers in 1980 and was elected to the partnership in 1983. He focused his attention on the design and construction of deep foundations and excavations. His first assignment was the design and construction of the 4-building World Financial Center with 2 basements mimicking the World Trade Center bathtub just across the street. His other projects ranged from Egypt to Frankfurt to Berlin to Mexico City. While his projects ranged all over the world, he will be remembered for his work on the World Trade Center below-grade recovery effort after 9/11. Achievements that George has attained. He's a registered professional engineer in 16 states, the UK, and Europe. He's elected to the National Academy of Engineering. He has the Mole's Outstanding Achievement in Construction Award. He's received the DFI Distinguished Service Award, the Golden Beaver Award, the AAES John Fritz Medal. He's an honorary ASCE honorary membership. He's gotten the ASC Opal Award, the ASC CAP, Peck, Balcom, Friedman, and Howard Awards. No shortage of awards. George authored or co-authored over 75 works, including a recent revision to the New York City Building Code Foundation section, earlier versions of the Post-Tensioning Institute tieback standards, as well as book chapters on foundation engineering, caissons, and slurry walls. He has appeared on the cover of Ground Engineering and is an Esquire magazine article. He was fully clothed for the article. His family life. Happily married for 54 years, he has 4 married children and 12 grandchildren. His wife, Rosemary, was his blind date for the Manhattan College senior prom. In his leisure time, George is easily entertained with a tiller or steering wheel in hand, and he enjoys a good company. And I can attest that George is worthy of the legends in engineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Next, speaking for Charles Berkel, Alan Roach.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I would like to first thank DFI for Mr. Berkel's award on behalf of the Berkel family and Berkel and Company employees. I would also like to, is this working okay? Like to acknowledge that all of Berkel's management from all over the United States, regional managers, along with my wife, are sitting out here in the middle. And thanks a lot for coming, guys. They're here to share in accepting this award along with me. Let me get my glasses. This is a picture of Mr. Berkel. This is a paragraph that his daughter Danielle wrote a few years ago, which probably says a whole lot about Mr. Berkel. I'm going to read it. Mr. Berkel is one of a special breed of men. He had a goal in mind and a commitment to fulfill. He accomplished these things through sheer hard work and persistence. He is respected throughout the community and can always be counted on to give a helping hand. He cares deeply about his family and employees and deserves the loyalty he has come to earn all of these years. That sums up a whole lot about Mr. Berkel, and it was written by his daughter Danielle. His early life, he was born in May of 1925 in Muskegon, Michigan, to Herman and Tina Berkel. His father was a machinist. He was a foreman at the largest gray iron foundry in the world at the time. They manufactured camshafts for the automobile factories. His siblings, he grew up among 2 brothers and 4 sisters, and he started his working life delivering papers for the Muskegon Chronicle in 1939 at the age of 12. The kids always said that every time they went back to visit family in Muskegon, they had to pay homage to the newspaper building and hear the story every time they went back. He was working there when World War II was declared, and he always told the story about, have you ever heard what an extra is? An extra, when they put out an extra newspaper, well, that day they put out an extra, and it was really busy. And he prided himself quite greatly on working since he was 12 years old. He graduated from high school in May of 1943 and enlisted in the U.S. Navy. Through a program that the Navy offered, he attended college at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago and then continued on at the University of Illinois. It was a program whereby they would pay for you to go to college. Once you got your degree, then you had a commitment to the Navy to serve there. Interestingly, Dr. Ralph Peck was one of his professors at his time when he was going to the University of Illinois, and he graduated from there with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering in 1946. After completing his studies, he became an ensign officer for the U.S. Navy. His great dream was to become a pilot. His vision wasn't 20/20, and you could not be a pilot with any corrected vision. He disproved the claim that carrot juice can make you see better. He would always talk about drinking gallons of carrot juice and taking many eye tests because he wanted to be a pilot so bad, but it didn't happen. During his time in the Navy, he traveled through the Far East, and he was discharged after the war ended while he was going to school, and he was discharged and continued on into his engineering career. At the time, he was working as a junior engineer for the city of Muskegon. That wasn't really what his goal in life was. He was looking for something more than that. And his mother knew a friend that had just let an apartment to a man by the name of Mr. Raymond Patterson. And Mr. Patterson worked for a construction firm called Intrusion Prepack in Chicago, and they suggested maybe that he might go visit with him about possible employment. Interesting enough, Mr. Patterson is the inventor of the original auger pile patent that was done in the early 1950s. As you look at this patent, you might note about the third one over, there's this grout pipe that sticks down there. Later on in this, I will show you something that will relate to that. Mr. Berkel was made a supervisor at Prepack in 1949. And he traveled a lot to the Midwest, did a lot of work in Kansas City area. After the Great Flood in Kansas City in 1951, he was transferred there. Prepack opened an office up there, and he became the regional manager. This is a newspaper article that we found announcing his promotion and Prepack opening a regional office in Kansas City. Most of the work back in those days was pressure grouting and pre-placed aggregate concrete, which was concrete repair, and there was a lot of this work that stemmed out of the flood-related repairs in the Kansas City area. He also developed quite a clientele with the different railroads around the country. We have some photos here of pre-placed aggregate concrete because maybe a lot of people don't know quite what that was. This is one of a bridge pier, railroad bridge pier, and the bottom part of the bridge pier had eroded away due to water wear, whatever, and so the process was to chip this back to good concrete, and then you would go in and place the steel around it, and then watertight forms would be built around to form it, and the forms would be filled with rock, a well-graded, washed rock, and grout pipes would be left in place, and then a cement grout would be pumped through these pipes, and this created a very durable, long-lasting concrete. And there was a lot of this work done on railroad bridge piers, spillways, dam spillways that had a lot of water wear. And that was a big part of Prepak's business, as well as when Mr. Berkel started, a big part of his, along with pressure grouting and soil stabilization. While he was living in Chicago, he met Antoinette Strauss, better known to all of us as Tony, and they were married in June of 1948. Over the years, Mr. Berkel and Tony adopted 4 children: Danny, Glory, Stephen, and Danielle. Tragically, Danny was taken from them in a car accident in 1968. This is a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Berkel along with Glory, Stephen, Danielle sitting, and her daughter and her husband on the right. Children weren't the only thing that the Berkels had. They raised longhorn cattle for a while, which probably seems odd if people knew him, but they raised them, and I think all the cows had names too, and all of that, and that went on for quite a few years. They had about 40 acres there in the country. Despite being unable to become a pilot in the Navy, Mr. Berkel obtained his pilot's license in 1966, and in 1967 he purchased his first aircraft, which is a Beechcraft Bonanza V-tail single-engine plane. During the years, other airplanes we had, this is a Cessna 310 twin engine. It was the first twin that we had. And then after that was a 318. We graduated up to that. And all of these yet were not pressurized cabins, but then we got the big plane that was a Cessna 340, which had a pressurized cabin, and we could fly really high. And at that point in time that we got it, we were very, very busy, and we hired a full-time pilot. We kept the 318 because it was taking 2 planes to get everybody around where we needed to stay on top of things, as we did not have all the regional offices that we have today. The last airplane that he actually flew is a Cessna 421, and at that time we kept the 340, got the 421, and we had 2 planes then. Over the years, he logged over 7,000 hours of flight time, and some years flying up to as much as 400 hours a year. He truly did love to fly, I will tell you that. And then this is the last airplane that we had. He did not pilot this one. This is a turbocharged Conquest Cessna 441. He always wanted to fly in acrobatic airplanes, and so Tony came across some way to get him hooked in to go fly in one of these, and this was a picture of him climbing into the airplane to go take his ride and do loop-de-loops. And the reports I got back was he was like a kid in a candy store when this thing landed. He was the greatest thrill in his life. Mr. Berkel broke away from Intrusion Prepak and started Berkel & Company along with 3 other Prepak employees in 1959. The business was starting at his home in Overland Park, Kansas. As the company grew, he relocated to Bonner Springs, Kansas. For quite some years, we had a small office downtown Bonner Springs. The warehouse facility was at his house. We had a fire there probably 30-some years ago now, and we moved out to the country more or less and built the corporate headquarters that we still have today. As Berkel continued to expand, we began adding offices in the late 70s, Miami, Baltimore, Atlanta, Louisville, Houston, D.C., San Francisco, and that's pretty much where we have our offices located today. The company ownership Mr. Berkel started the employee stock ownership plan in 1976, whereby giving 35% of the company to the employees. Keep in mind, he was a little over 50 years old at this time, and he was already planning for succession with the company when he left. And this was the first piece of it. I will tell you, he was a very sharing man. The people that worked for Berkel and Company, if the company made money, those people got bonuses. He treated them just like family. And a lot of the ESOP setup is he knew that there was probably a lot of people that wouldn't save money very well, and he wanted to try to put something away to help these guys out that they couldn't get a hold of, and this was one way of going about doing it. He maintained his 51% ownership until he passed in 2013, and today we are a 100% ESOP employee-owned company as per the plan that he designed and set up clear back in 1976. This is a picture of an early auger pile. I would say this is an intrusion pre-pack picture. You can see they're using an air motor on a frame to drill the piles down. And here you can see the grout pipes. The pipes were actually along the auger, and that was the original patent of drilling it down, putting the grout pipe along the pile, and then pumping the grout as you pulled the auger out. Along the way, Mr. Patterson says maybe we should drill a hole through that hollow or solid core auger that we have, and we could pump that grout through there, and therein lies how that process was created. These are some old pictures of this rig here was held up and probably moved around by a crane. I would say it's probably in the early 1950s, and this one definitely from the automobiles there is somewhere in the early 1950s. Can you guys imagine trying to get that through the front gate of a refinery nowadays? Wouldn't happen, would it? Comparison to what with our hanging lead system that we have today. So this industry has came a long, long ways. What we do as a company, we do deep foundations, we do auger pressure grouted piles, displacement piles, drilled shafts, rock anchors, tie downs, sheeting and shoring, ground improvement. If there's any questions what we do, go by our booth. We'd be glad to talk to you. Noteworthy projects. We were founded in '59. We're 56 years old. We truly have done over 11,000 projects in our life. And at some points in time, there were probably projects that were very noteworthy, that were the tallest building and whatever, and the biggest parking garages, and today they've been surpassed, so now they're not as noteworthy. So we tried to come up with something that you all see on TV or walk through sometimes in the way of stadiums, airports, but Georgia Dome, Turner Field, the Cleveland Browns Stadium, the Reds baseball stadium we did with Gettle, 49ers Stadium here locally, just did a big part of the Falcons Stadium, and numerous renovations to those other stadiums, along with a lot of college stadiums, Ohio State, so forth. Airports, some of these we did the original, some of them we did additions and renovations. Atlanta, Fort Myers, Orlando, Miami, San Francisco, Kansas City, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Greenville, Spartanburg, Love Field, and Dallas, and Pittsburgh. A couple of more I thought about. We have done some work in San Diego Airport also. The World Trade Center, we were there after 9/11, one of 3 companies involved in installing tiebacks in the bathtub walls as the excavation was being done of the collapsed floor slabs, and spent many weeks up there working 24/7 doing that work. As well, we were involved in the Pentagon Memorial at the location where it was hit. Actually, at the time the Pentagon was hit, we had work going on there on the other side of the building. However, we did not have employees there that particular morning. If you've been to Union Station in Washington, D.C., we did a huge shoring job of a 50-foot excavation there right along a supported railroad track. The D.C. Court of Appeals was a underpinning project, underpinning and shoring project, which we've had papers about. The Jefferson Rotunda was a shoring job that was just recently written up in a DFI magazine. Mr. Berkel's awards and achievements. In 2007, he received DFI's Distinguished Service Award. Ernst & Young's 2008 Entrepreneur of the Year in the Kansas City region, and went on to compete in Palm Springs, California. The Agricultural Hall of Fame, which is located there in Bonner Springs, Kansas, and he was on the board there for many years, and this is a Lifetime Achievement Award he received. And the United Way awarded him Spirit of Caring Award last year. He also has an honorary doctorate from the University of St. Mary in Leavenworth, Kansas. Life member of ASCE, was on advisory council for St. Lord's Catholic Campus Sisters Servants of Mary, which was one of his big charities. Board member of Brotherhood Bank and Trust, St. Mary, Villa St. Francis, and the Ag Hall. These are a few of his charitable contributions, of course, the DFI Educational Trust, Catholic Charities, the University of St. Mary, Boy Scouts, United Way, and there are many others. This is a rendering of the new Charles Berkel Memorial Stadium at the University of St. Mary in Leavenworth, Kansas. This stadium will bear his name and is under construction and getting very close to getting finished right now. And that's what it's going to look like. As well, at the University of St. Mary, there is a residence hall called Berkel Hall, that while Tony was still alive, the two of them were huge in getting that built. And that completes.
Thank you, Alan. One of the things that struck me as we were putting this program together, the impressive track record of all of these gentlemen, and you'll hear more about Mr. Trevisani to follow. But the breadth and depth of these men is just amazing. Their civic works, their family focus, what they've done for their communities and for the industries in which they have served and in which they've done very well and made so many innovative contributions, clearly defines them as legends. And the human dimension, which you are finding out about these gentlemen, and you will find out more, is something that we don't ever want to forget, that these are not robots. None of this was automatic. It was intellect and passion that brought all these things to bear. And let's hear some more, representing Mr. Davide Trevisani, Stefano Trevisani.
Which one is it? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. First of all, special thanks on behalf of my father and the family to the DFI Legend Award Committee. It's an honor to be here, a privilege, and for us it's a very, very good idea. You're considering engineering, contracting, and machinery, the three pillars of foundation construction industry, deep foundation industry. So I think it's a very good idea for DFI. So the first problem we had when we put together this presentation, and I knew I had to present it, was how do I call this person? Davide, President, Dad. So I don't know. I still don't know, so we'll use the three of them, all of them. So we're talking a person, activity as an entrepreneur, an inventor, banker, activist in many fields. And so this is the story that we're going to present. How to go from a tripod type of equipment for piling in the 50s to the ultimate technologies in a very deep slurry wall. You need to have a lot of features here: curiosity, ingenuity, courage, And I had even passion, we just heard that, and a lot of enthusiasm and pragmatism to go through this process. So Davide started the early life in Cesena. This is where the head office of Trevi Group is, in 1937. And this is a special region in Italy where a lot of activity in engineering and machinery is concentrated in a distance of few kilometers. Many names, brand names, very famous in the world, in the automotive industries belong to this area. So there is a very strong background in this region. 1962, got married. My mom is here. And 4 children, Stefano, Monica, Alessandra, and Simone. Very old pictures, 1993. Long, few pounds ago, I will say. So Davide started the company. In 1956, he got this high school degree as a surveyor. And in 1957, he was working on a job site as a surveyor. And in this job site, not far from our head office today, there was a piling activity with one of these tripods. So he basically measures simply what the margin was in this activity. So he decided to start the idea to be a piling contractor. He was 20, no money, family borrow money with a loan of $450 with guarantee from father, friends as a collateral. So the activity started as a piling contractor and working mainly in Italy and developing equipments immediately, we will see later on, but mainly being involved in many projects, not only in Italy, just a few years later, he was already working overseas with a very small organization, but again, with a lot of passion. And then the group grown up. Trevi became one of the world leaders in this type of activity with branches and companies around the world and involvement in many sophisticated projects throughout, let's say, in 4 continents. Special activity was this one related to the work for Pisa Tower. And we need to mention a couple of things here. So Davide was president of the consortium of company working on the Pisa Tower, actually directly for a team of professors. And so he was very actively involved in all the decisions, what to do and how to do it. For the president of the consortium, there was a professor of geotechnical professor in the university in Italy. So 9 years of test, 6 months of works. That was the results. And during these years, there were many things tested, including sophisticated technologies, and not always things went as they were supposed to be. I remember one year, because it was mentioning to me, yes, the Pisa Tower started to move, but in the wrong direction. So they talked to each other, himself and the professor Yamalkowski, and they said to each other, listen, don't worry, one way or the other we'll become famous. In 1999, the group was listed in the Milan Stock Exchange, and this was a big decision for him and for the family. But that gave resources to expand the business overseas. And for many years, for 10 years actually, Trevi was the second performance stock in the stock exchange in Milan. Talking about machinery, the real passion, I would say, combined with the enthusiasm to always innovate, that was his original idea. And looking at what's happening, especially overseas, also in the United States, to become not only a piling contractor, but also a rig manufacturer. He discovered how it was important in this sector, in this industry, combining the experience as a contractor with experience as a manufacturer. So these are some of the first equipment design by Davide. One of the first hydraulic crawler driven pile equipments ever seen in Italy. And the first crane attachment built in Italy is called RT3, one of the most famous piling rig around the world still today. And maybe we'll later on tell more about that, what was the concept, the simple concept behind these rigs. So Solmec was established in 1969, a separate plant from Trevi, and started to sell equipments to Trevi competitors in Europe, in Italy, but also in Europe. A lot of innovation, a lot of research, always this strong passion and enthusiasm for technologies. Basically, Solmec grew up and able to supply today the full range of machinery for deep foundation activities. Some of the special or noteworthy projects, again, coming up, the demand came from a job site that Trevi was doing, so they were building this special special triple clamshell as a special application. And in 1981, one of the major development in piling activity. This small equipment here on the right actually was the first self-erecting hydraulic rigs, which today, and unfortunately, I forgot to patent this, but today is the most common piling rigs around the world as a system. Again, application in the special geotechnical works, for this case for tunneling. We're talking about forepoling and jack grouting or drilling grouting activity for this special double boom equipment that was widely used in many countries, including Japan, for many, many years. Technology, again, noteworthy projects. In 1992, designed the first trencher to build continuous slurry wall for several applications. And in around 2000 and 2005, what is called the DMS, which is a computerized controlling system that's basically monitored from a remote control room all the activity, the drilling activity, the excavation activity, as well as quality control for equipments. Also, in 2006 was the first case, the second pile with hydraulic rocketry. And after the acquisition of Rodio in 2005, actually in 2008, he started to develop this idea of hydraulic hydromill. Full line of heavy-duty cranes, the full range, as we said before, of cranes and equipments for the foundation industry. Again, this special application of machinery knowledge and engineering, he designed the Trevi Park, which is an automatic underground car parks. Using the same system he was developing for the activity in Solmec, as well as the same system also for the remote control activity we were talking before. And again, we reached these records in 2012. World record about 830 feet for an hydromill excavation. And when we talk a record, means again, this very strong passion for something new to explore, something new to develop, with a lot of question points before you start, but with good solution at the end of the process. It's worth to mention also this engineering attitude was also applied from Solmec to the oil industry. This is a very unusual passage. Worldwide, the oil and gas industry is considered at the top level in developing technologies. What happened actually, he designed these equipments together with, of course, the design department, where Solmec experience of so many years of hydraulic application was turned into these new hydraulic rigs for oil and gas drilling and exploration activity. And in 1992, DrillMec was founded, and today DrillMec is the largest European manufacturer for this type of application. Again, this pictures here of how the hydraulic rigs developing drill mix looks like. Award and achievement. He became a Cavaliere del Lavoro, which is Order of Merit for Labors. He was the youngest person that ever achieved this award, and this is when he got the award directly from the Italian president in 1977. There's a mistake here. In 1999, he got this honorary doctorate in civil engineering in the University of Bologna. Again, from the Italian president, Mr. Napolitano, the Italian quality achievement is called Leonardo Award, Leonardo da Vinci Award. In 2010, was nominated, got the award as Entrepreneur of the Year for the industrial activity in Italy. Again, emeritus member of the Italian Geotechnical Association in 2012. He had a lot of activity starting in 1977 related to banking. So he was president from 1977 to 2011 of a local bank in Italy for 34 years with a strong contribution, with his experience, let's say, contribution to the local community. It was done all on a voluntary basis and combined 34 years of activity in Trevi Group with 34 years of activities as a banker. Not an easy thing for sure. Again, part of the community means redistributing what the group was able to develop in terms of wealth during all these years. So a number of charitable contribution together with Davide, the two brothers, Gianluigi and Cesare, they decided to set up this social value. Every year, an amount of money is distributed in projects around the world, South America, Africa, Middle East. The last things to mention is the strong contribution to this achievement of Davide and the two brothers, Gianluigi Trevisani and Cesare Trevisani. So this is the story. A lot of work with those $450 loan that started in 1957. And that's it. Thank you.
Before we get into our conversation, and we are going to have a conversation, and we're going to bring George up here. At the end of these three presentations, I have one word to say. Whew. Amazing, amazing achievements that all of these gentlemen represent. And in the years to come, additional people will be so honored, and their histories will be shared with members of this community, and we will say once again, how amazing. But every day, people in this industry do amazing things. I've been fortunate enough to have been involved in this industry for almost 35 years, which is crazy, and I'm continually amazed by what is achieved. Genius, commitment, passion, and on and on and on. So let's have a conversation. At the end of our formal questions that I will present to the panel and to individuals, I would really encourage you to come on up and participate. The microphone will be here. Anything you'd like to know. Okay, so let's talk. George, do we have you with us? Hi, George.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. How are things in Rhode Island?
We had a beautiful sunset about an hour and a half ago, but I think most of the winter was down by. I'll have to start pointing my nose south so I can warm up my lungs and body.
Well, we're glad that you could make it with us today. This question is, I'm going to ask of you, and then I'm going to ask the other panelists because I think this might be very interesting for people to know. And the question would be, at what point in your career, in your youth, did you decide on your career? And further, was it by choice or by accident that you chose your career?
I think I can say that I chose my career because I watched my friend's father professionally active as an architect, and I liked what he was doing for a living. And I was very interested in becoming an architect. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford the loans or brushes can't figure it in school. And as a result, I ended up studying civil engineering at college, construction. So I got into construction through the back door, doing something other than I really came to do. Every one of my career changes has been serendipitous and happy as a result of good luck and good fortune and opportunity. The one thing I think has been a great help is that I was able to use the Italian language skills to build a career both in the original work I did in Madden and Rome and the work that I did for the World Trade Center that I was in the first place. The Italian language is very helpful and opened the door.
Thank you. I'd like to pose the same question to Davide. If you could do that for us, Stefano. At what point in your youth did you decide on your career? Was it by choice or was it an accident?
La tua carriera è stata per caso o per scelta?
Ma direi per caso. I prefer Mr. Stefano Itraletti for me. Thank you. Per caso, guardando e osservando una capra che lavorava in un cantiere e facendo io la contabilità come geometra del cantiere, ho visto che guadagnava molti soldi e allora un grande margine e quindi ho deciso di fare quel mestiere lì.
Going to
We all got
translate
that, right?
simple. I don't need to translate, right? No, he said that it was by chance because, as I was saying before, he was working on a job site, watching a piling rig as a surveyor, and he was keeping the accounting for the owner. So he realized how high was the margin in this piling work. So he said that could be my career.
I think the banking probably came out of that awareness as well. I'll direct this question to you. George, you and I have talked about your notion about wearing 3 hats. What does that mean to you and to us?
Well, I've had the great fortune of having 3 very specific, different activity areas. Actually, perhaps even 4. I did research when I was in but my first position was water guarding, which was an owner, and I was able to gain an owner's perspective on the relationship between the various parties involved in the project. And it was very helpful to understand what motivated the owner, those important. My experience was as a contractor, in fact, a specialty contractor, which is a very used position under the general contractor conditions. I understood what motivated the contractor, what the contractor's goals were, what his interests were, and how he wished to proceed. The last experience as a consulting engineer gives the perspective of the technical aspects of the work, what's interesting and what's concerning to an engineer. Having spent all of those years in those various roles, I kind of brag about spending my time at Berkel.
Alan, in the early days, how did Berkel survive and flourish when other specialty contractors with who you competed dropped out of the market?
Well, I would say that the fact they dropped out of the market helped a little bit. But Mr. Berkel set this company up in the center part of the United States for a specific reason, and that was to develop a company that would be nationwide. And he spent many, many days traveling around the country promoting the auger pile work and its acceptance into the field. And the willingness to go anywhere, anytime, and spread out geographically, where a lot of these small companies were localized. They did not want to leave home. I would say that was one of the bigger factors, was his vision of what he was going to do. And we weren't just going to be a local contractor. We were going to be nationwide, and it gave us opportunities. And there was much travel, as the airplanes I showed, because that's what it took to make it all work.
One of the things that was brought up by one of the members of the committee as we were developing these questions was what decision-making process was involved in deciding not to branch out into, say, Canada or South America or other.
You know, I would say, we've worked in the Caribbean, we've worked in Canada. We have never opened offices in those locations. We have worked in Trinidad, Aruba, a few places, but it's always been in connection mostly with U.S. companies or some company there locally, not as an office thing. And I think it would probably be the control of being able to stay on top of what was going on. And as long as we could keep growing this company in the U.S., that would be more what our goal would be. But we never have walked away from if someone was interested in us going overseas in the right conditions, we would do it in a minute, and he always was for that.
Mr. Trevisani, how did you differentiate your company from those with whom you compete?
Come differenzi la società dalle società con cui compete, con cui hai concorrenza? Che differenza vedi tra società e concorrenti?
Ma the problem. Beh, innanzitutto io credo che ogni società ha delle specificità proprie che derivano molto spesso nel nostro settore dalla capacità dell'imprenditore di percorrere un certo percorso, quindi uno diverso dagli altri, anche se in competizione.
Trade secrets.
No, I think that most companies have a different way of doing business according to the entrepreneur style and the way he has, to behave in the business. Vuoi continuare?
No, ma finisci.
Thank you. George, other than the New York World Trade Center slurry wall project, what was your most interesting and challenging project?
I think probably the World Financial Center project, which is just across the street from the World Trade Center. It was a 4-building complex. It was my first project in Mueser, and we were going to design and oversee the construction of 2 major slurry 2 buildings, and the caissons support for 2 other buildings. The buildings that were to be erected on that site were at that time probably within the top 10 height buildings in the New York City area. And for me, it was a new experience as a consultant rather than a contractor. And the scale of it was rather large, and it took a lot of comfort with it. Actually, Rick and I started on that job together. He was a very young engineer at the time. I was a little bit older, but I think that it was a very good project for us, and we'll learn a lot.
Thanks. Alan, speaking for your experience, and you knew Charles very well, how do you think specialty contracting has changed over the years?
One thing I might just mention, I did work with Mr. Berkel for over 40 years before his passing, so yes, I did know him very, very well. We worked very closely together. I would say what I've seen, and he would agree, in the specialty contracting market, we have definitely went more away from well, we become more consultants in many ways as the years have went on, and the experience that we've gained. You know, we get involved and I'm sure a lot of specialty people do ground floor planning on projects where earlier on that would not happen. We would get specifications, plans, and it would be bid that way. So there's a lot more front end work of consulting with people from past experience that we have, along with probably more design build work than what there used to be years ago.
So how do you see things changing in, say, the short term, medium term? We probably can't talk about the long term.
No, but I would say the design build stuff would probably continue to expand more. That's what we see.
Great, thank you. Mr. Trevisani, in your opinion, what has been the greatest breakthrough in deep foundation equipment?
Indubbiamente la macchina RT3 che avete visto nella slide, quando nell'anno 1962 fece per la prima volta nella storia del mondo i pali a grande diametro con il sistema della perforazione con i fanghi bentonitici statici.
So certainly the crane attachment you have seen in the pictures related to the 60s, the early 60s, which was designed and used for the first time in Italy to drill shaft with the use of bentonite mud, and which was a very special type of equipment.
E quelle macchine poi ne sono state costruite 1300 uguali e diffuse in tutto il mondo, e successivamente sono state 3300 macchine sempre che utilizzavano lo stesso sistema, quelle automontanti, che facevano sempre i pali trivellati con fango bentonitico statico.
We built more than 1,500 of these units and sold worldwide, and also the more than 3,000 units of these self-erecting hydraulic rigs which are still used in the construction of drill shaft.
Una particolarità anche importante è che mentre prima le macchine americane, di origine americana, della Watson, della Calvert, della Williams, della Camo, erano tutte con aste quadrate telescopiche, noi inventammo il sistema di avere l'asta telescopica tonda, circolare, con 3 listelli, in modo che lo sforzo portava alla centricità della perforazione.
George, would you like to translate that? Stefano, please.
One of the major differences was in the calibar systems, because these crane attachments, different system from what was used in the United States at the time, use a 3-bar calibar, which basically was able to drill maintaining a better degree of verticality because of the symmetric, stress on the calibar. So 120-degree, let's say, stress distribution in the calibar.
Fantastic. This is a question I'd like to address to all panelists, and George, you might answer first. What are the positive and negative changes that you've seen in the industry or the profession during your career?
I think the positive changes have been the improvement in the ability to do analysis and design, and the high caliber of equipment and personnel that's available to do the work to the specialist contractors. The problem that I see coming from all of this high-tech skill that we've developed is that we're having non-skilled people doing some of the work and getting themselves into very deep difficulty as a result of them not knowing and understanding the sophistication of what they're dealing with. The projects have become we find that skilled people to do work, and that is the greatest concern in this.
Alan, would you respond to that? Positive and negative changes that you've seen in the industry and the profession?
I would agree. The equipment that's being used nowadays compared to what it was years ago has been a tremendous, tremendous advancement, and has enabled, basically in the piling world, for things to be bigger and deeper. A lot of automated monitoring equipment for quality control, which eases people's minds, that wasn't available, which has been a big plus in our industry. And from our sheeting and shoring side would be all the improvements that's been done with the tieback drills and that type of equipment that we used to not have access to, that probably most of them have came from Europe. Those have been very positive things. Speaking as if I was Mr. Berkel, I would tell you the one negative thing is pay has got slower and slower. And all of our guys know what I'm talking about, because he was a real stickler with that. But if he was here, that's what he would sit here and talk to you about for quite some time, about how slow people pay now. So
That's great.
and that is a negative.
Mr. Trevisani?
Ma noi abbiamo avuto la fortuna di avere come positività tante persone appassionate al nostro lavoro, che amavano molto il lavoro e dedicavano con soddisfazione nel lavoro, dedicavano la loro attività sempre a maggior profitto anche dell'impresa. Quindi oggi è sempre più fatica trovare delle persone così qualificate come sono i nostri attuali, e per il futuro vedo abbastanza problematico che le specializzazioni abbiano sempre una appeal così forte sulla persona.
We were fortunate during our years of activity to find human resources, people belong to the company that were fully committed to the company and supported the company during this period of growth. So what they say maybe for the future, it's not easy to find qualified people working in this industry, and this will be one of the major challenges.
Great. I have a question for all panelists, and George, we'll start with you. If you had it to do all over again, would you do anything differently?
I don't know how I could, because everything that happened serendipitously to me. I didn't do as much planning as I took opportunities, as I saw things happening that were career builders. I took the opportunity to move in that particular direction. Remembering, I started off with great expectations at the top of the George Washington University. I sent it into hell when I went to the World Trade Center. I had a very profound career change. I never seen an opportunity and taken an opportunity and proceeded. I don't know how I could have planned that.
Mr. Trevisani, if you had it to do all over again, would you do anything differently? If so, what?
A dire la verità non ci ho mai pensato.
Frankly speaking, I never thought about it.
Sounds like you
Which
didn't.
is already
Seems like you didn't have enough time
simple.
to think about it. Right? I don't know if you can answer that, Alan.
I would say that was a very good answer. That was a very good answer. I would say Mr. Berkel, if he was here, with the success that we've had, would say, "No, I don't think I would change anything." And one of his big deals was, change will happen, and if you're not ready to change with change, then you're going to get left behind. So things constantly change, and he certainly had a strong thoughts about how we change with change. Otherwise, we don't stay where we want to be. So,
Mr. Trevisani, what advice would you give to a young person considering a career in the deep foundations industry?
Ma molto spesso deve pensare di cercare di cambiare e di inventare sempre qualcosa di nuovo, perché così facendo ha più possibilità di far crescere l'azienda e quindi di sviluppare tecnologie anche nel settore delle fondazioni speciali sono molto interessanti e sempre nuove. Ogni volta che si cambia terreno si cambia anche la testa, la cultura e la tecnologia richiesta.
Stefano?
He has to think to use an innovative approach to the activity, because in our business, technology development and innovation is the key for success. So is highlighting this type of innovation approach.
Alan, could you take a run at that?
I would say, Mr. Berkel, first and foremost, would say education, as you witnessed from the DFI Educational Trust Fund, as well as our in-house scholarship plan that we have for all of our employees' dependents. He was very thankful that he had the opportunity to get his degree through that Navy program, and felt very strongly that that education opened the door to him to begin his career. And I think the other would be, is any young person going into a specialty contracting business, they need to understand that the first few years of their career, they need to be spent out in the field learning what the business is that you're going to get into, and you're not going to just automatically be sitting in the front office, because it takes time to, from a specialty contractor's business, it takes a lot of time to really learn what's going on, and you have to have some patience and fortitude to do that. And if you're looking for an 8 to 5 job, then it's not for you. So
Sounds like millennials don't apply. George, how about you? What advice would you give to a young person considering a career in the deep foundation industry?
I'll just focus on the engineering aspect of it. I think the first advice would be to get an advanced degree and as beneficial education as you can prior to entering the industry. Secondly, if you're in design office, you have to build as much experience as you can in the field, because you just don't learn behind the desk. A lot of things that are critical to our industry. If you're in the field, into the design office, understand the design process and how one puts together a contract and is an aspect of the contract. As the engineer advances in his career, I think it's essential that he or she pursues continuing education throughout their career. Give talks, join committees, stay active at all times, and stay on top of things. And lastly, don't go into the profession with preconceived notions of what you're going to do, because there are going to be things that arise that will be opportunities that may come to you a very short period of time, and you want to be prepared to take that opportunity to advance as quickly and as advantageously as you can. Essentially, the person should stay flexible and as technically skilled as they could be.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to open up the floor to you folks now. Any questions that you might have for any of the individuals, to the panel in general? Please, use the microphone there if you don't mind. Just say, identify yourself if you feel comfortable doing that, and then ask your question.
Yes, this is Bob Bittner. This is questions for George Tamaro. I was curious, as you were advancing within the industry, was there a particular individual that inspired you or that you considered as a mentor?
I actually had 3 people that were significant influences in my career. The first was Dr. Berkel, who was my thesis advisor at University. And who I had became eventually the head of the Oakland Council, who I had a continuing professional contact with throughout my career. The second was Professor Mueser Rutledge at Columbia University, who I think brought out some strengths that I didn't realize I had in my pursuit of the architectural career. And the third is Jim Gould, who was my partner in Mueser Rutledge. What I learned from Jim was to sit back and listen, don't before you engage in training. Jim would sit patiently listen to the partners battle on, and within a matter of a minute or two, would focus on the correct solution to what we're discussing, and in a very brief manner, explain the position and convince us to proceed with the particular manner. I think those two people probably were most influential technically. As far as my becoming bachelor in lax and learning how to keep it bad and good, but Torres is probably the most influential person in the world. And I'm not betting on probably 50 pounds lighter.
That's a good question I'd like to ask other members of the panel to weigh in on. Did you have a mentor, someone who influenced you early on in your career?
I can answer for Mr. Berkel. Let me go. Mr. Patterson, who I was talking about earlier, I would say was definitely his mentor. And years after Mr. Patterson left Intrusion Prepack, he actually, the first couple of years I was there, I worked with Mr. Patterson. There's no doubt he was Mr. Berkel's mentor.
How about you?
Mr. Berkel.
Mr. Berkel. Mr. Trevisani, did you have a mentor, someone who...
Yes. Inizialmente, all'inizio dell'attività, avevo un punto di riferimento che era l'organizzazione Rodio nel mondo, che era allora la più grande impresa di fondazioni speciali. Poi col tempo, quando ho cominciato a servire loro con le macchine e vendere le macchine alla Rodio, avevo visto che c'era una forte differenza fra una grande organizzazione e una piccola organizzazione.
At the beginning,
Alla fine, negli anni 90, con la crisi mondiale, noi siamo riusciti a comprare la Rodio che era andato in difficoltà.
at the beginning of my career, I had a reference, as a company as a reference, which was Rodio, which is one of the most famous company in Europe and in Italy for geotechnical activity. So it was really, he admired the type of organizations and the system they had to work. And eventually, the two companies joined together because then it was able to acquire Rodio several decades later and become one single company.
Thank you. Next, from the audience, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone and kindly identify yourself and address the question to either an individual or to the panel. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kunle Awubudu from Lagos, Nigeria. My question goes to Mr. Trevisani. I would like to ask a question here, that what influenced you to come to Nigeria to come and establish in that part of Africa? And we all know that Trevi is somehow the most popular foundation company in Nigeria today. Looking back at your wealth of experience, was there any regret in your coming to locate your company in Nigeria since the 70s? Thank you.
Don't look to me to translate.
Lui dice che viene dalla Nigeria e sa che la Trevi è una società molto importante in Nigeria e chiede se c'è stato mai un ripensamento per le attività svolte in Nigeria.
No, in Nigeria siamo andati nel 1968 durante la guerra del Biafra e abbiamo fatto i pali tipo Franchi per la Papa Road che collega Lagos con il porto di Lagos. Da allora abbiamo avuto sempre successo, sviluppo. Oggi ci sono 15 italiani e 850 nigeriani che lavorano ed è una delle realtà più interessanti che abbiamo in Africa.
We started the activity in Nigeria in 1968 with one bridge along the Apapa Road. Maybe you are familiar with that. And since then, the activity was developed with no regret with investments. And today, Nigeria is run by, in Nigeria, working about 15 expatriates and about 800 local people that are supporting one of the best companies, I say, that we have around the world.
Thank you. Other questions from the audience, please. Come on up here, please, sir. And you are, and
My name
your
is
question
Peter
is?
Faust.
Okay.
I got a question, since we're talking about technology and advancement, to the entire panel. Where do you see the next big technology leap, or in which technology do you expect the next big advancement in our engineering? Thank you.
This one? I'll wait for them.
I would say, as far as the auger pile industry that we are in, the next biggest technology probably is taking place right now, and we're in the middle of it, is putting in larger diameter, deeper piles, which most of you who are in the business are aware of, and that's continuing to be more and more and more. And I think going along with that is the technologies of monitoring equipment and the quality control that goes with these bigger diameter piles that are a lot higher loaded piles than what conventionally you would have seen on auger piles. Makes the quality control very, very important. And I think those technologies, as we're heading down the road right now, is something that we'll probably see some advancement in, I would get.
Mr. Trevisani, and then George.
Noi vediamo molto interessante sviluppare automatismi nelle nostre macchine, ma soprattutto il controllo a distanza dell'operatività della macchina, del lavoro che fa, della qualità del lavoro che fa, della quantità di valore che fa, tutto via internet, così che l'imprenditore può già da oggi controllare dal suo ufficio se il palo è fatto bene, se il diaframma è fatto bene e quanti pali al giorno, quanti metri lineari al giorno produce, oltre che come viene trattata la macchina.
We see application in the future more towards automatic type of rigs, where basically with the remote control system, as we were explaining before, so from a remote area, you basically can control the production activity, the quality of the work, and this is where you see, let's say, more development for the future.
George?
I agree fully. It's a matter of increased automation and quality control, and most of this is educated by the lack of highly skilled people and larger jobs of very complexity. We're going to have computers take over for the skills that were normally provided by individuals who developed it as a result of their experience in construction field.
Thank you. Please. Can you please identify yourself, sir, because nobody here knows you?
My name is Dick Short.
And before you go on, I'm really pleased that you're here because, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to know that this beautiful medal was designed, created by Mr. Short.
Thank you. My question is, can you characterize the circumstances, if you look back on your career, when you think you did your best work, or what, yes, just.
Mr. Trevisani?
Either one, everybody, both of you.
L'opportunità importante è stato quando nel 1975, allora in Iran c'era ancora il governo lo Shia, abbiamo avuto la possibilità di concorrere per la più grande impresa italiana, Contractor, a fare 5 chilometri di banchine in tutto il porto di Bandarabas. È stata un'opportunità e un'esperienza interessante perché... Vedete che dopo continuo.
Okay, now we switch from engineering to contracting, you know, because this question is not as a Solmec, but more as a Trevi, but it's the same. So he said that we had an opportunity in the 70s to have a large project in Iran. We had to build 5 kilometers of jetties, of diaphragm wall, which was a huge challenge for the group at that time, but it was a very interesting project.
Perché mi hanno dato la possibilità di sperimentare sia le benne normali, che avevo costruito da poco tempo, sia anche la benna T per fare i diaframmi a T.
Because it gave the possibility to experiment the hydraulic clamshell, what you have seen in the pictures, the normal hydraulic clamshell and the triple valve hydraulic clamshell that was specifically designed for that project.
Alan, can you respond to that?
I would say that from Mr. Berkel's standpoint, in the 70s, probably is when we started transitioning into manufacturing our own augers because our auger supplier couldn't keep up with our demands, so we started doing it ourselves. We started building all of our own hydraulic power packs, drill motors, all of our hanging lead equipment we built and still build. Along the way, then probably early 80s, we started building our own grout pumps, which we still build today. So we started a lot of manufacturing of our own equipment so we could become self-sufficient. When we needed something, we didn't have to wait on other people. As we transitioned on into the 90s, we began looking into the displacement piles and started to do displacement piles, which took us to buying fixed mast rigs to have the torque to be able to do those. And along in that same era, we started our sheeting and shoring division, which we continue to grow now. So I would say it all has evolved over a long time. For all of us that are here, we'd like to say the best is still yet to come, and we're going to keep working at that.
Thank you, Alan.
I see you both characterized the event as a challenge that you were able to satisfy with your own ingenuity, but you had the opportunity through a project of some sort.
Yes.
Yeah.
George, you want to weigh in on that, please?
Oh, excuse me.
Well, I think probably the most important project I worked on was the original rotating center foundations, which were non-entity scale that was experienced in the United States, and perhaps in Europe at that time, back in 1967, and also the recovery after 2001. I would say, though, that I probably would have to admit that I did done my best work, because I frankly believe that there's always room for improvement on anything we do. And one of the most important things that I think guides in my work ethic is self-doubt. I never think I have the best answer, and I always seek to improve on what I'm doing, because there's always room for something to be done better. There's always something that you miss. You have to go back and revisit and redo what you're doing. So I think a little humility is very awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dick. Well, we've had an incredible opportunity here to converse with legends. The next time you'll get that opportunity will be in 2018. We very much want to encourage you to be there. Hopefully, we'll still be there. I'd like to thank everybody for all the preparation work that they did, Rick, Alan, Stefano. I'd like to thank all of you folks for being here, participating. I'd like to thank Dick Short for the beautiful medals, and I would encourage those for you to come up and take a look at these. Dave Coleman, this puppy was your idea. Thank you. DFI for having the forethought to do this, and I'd like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to participate. And thank you so much for all being here. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Oh, yeah. Can we put the medals?